Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 542. Now today I'm going to review Mechs versus Minions, and the first thing you're going to notice about this is the box is gigantic. So just for fun, I have here Terraforming Mars, which is kind of your standard Ticket to Ride size box. So you can see just kind of a general sort of relevance of what the box size is. Now what this is a new game from the video game publisher Riot Games, who did League of Legends, and this is set in the League of Legends universe. It is not League of Legends, the board game. It's a co-op game, and so players will be controlling these different mechs, and you're going to be fighting, more often than not, these minions. And it's going to take you through a series of scenarios, starting with a tutorial scenario, which is going to get you right in and playing the game. For all intents and purposes, there's not really actually a rule book. Now there's a rules reference that's separate, but you'll open up the tutorial, you'll start playing, it'll kind of slowly introduce some mechanics to you through that, then you'll jump into scenario number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on, all the way through, I believe, 10 total scenarios. And it's a co-op using programmed movement. Before I get too much into it though, let's jump into and look at the game, a little bit how it works, and then I'm going to tell you what I think of it. Okay, so I just wanted to make a quick mention of the crazy, amazing, awesome insert that comes with the game. Now I'm not going to do a complete 100% rules walkthrough or overview of the insert. If you go to Watch It Played, Rodney Smith over there, he did a nice overview, kind of the overall presentation of the game, as well as a, his traditional kind of rules walkthrough from beginning to end. But I just want to kind of give a quick mention of it in case you hadn't, seen it before. The game comes with 100 of these minions that you can see packaged in here, and each of them has their own little spot. And then we also have here the 4 heroes, which I'll show you in more detail in a second. And as I said, the game presents itself to you through these sort of mission packets. So I'm on mission 4, and you've got the tutorial, and then here's kind of the reference book there, and so on. And now each of these comes in a sealed top secret envelope. So it's kind of like a legacy game that way. There'll be cards and things like that, new rules, new scenarios, but you don't tear anything up. You just tear open the envelope and throw that out, and then you're able to just go through and play these as much as you want. And then at the bottom here, we're going to have all the game boards and stuff, which I'm going to set out, and the player boards and so on. And then there's this thing, which I could not resist and open, but I've been told is a spoiler to show. So I am not going to show it on this video because I already got in trouble for that. So in here, you have a certain thing that you will have to deal with. I think on your third or fourth scenario, this will show up. You can see the axe there. Okay, and then also, I'm going to break my rule. This is the best sand timer I've ever seen in my life. Okay, now let's set up the game a little bit, and I'll show you a little bit how it works, and then we'll jump into the review. Okay, so I've got some of the components set out. I'm not going to show you every last detail like I said. So the first thing to note here, of course, are the mechs, and these are amazingly painted. These are the different, I think they're called yordles or something like that, and so these come out pre-painted, and this is a really excellent pre-paint job here. You can see the detail here, like on this little bomb guy that he's driving around there. So players are going to be controlling these, and then you're going to take a player board that matches each of these different mechs here. So for example here, Tristana is the last one I'm going to show you. She's got this. Everybody has the same slot of 6 cards. Then everybody has a different overdrive ability. This is a special ability that your mech has. So let's take a look at Tristana here. She's on this sort of, looks like a Sonic type of machine there. And the other addition is over the course of the scenarios, let's find the Tristana ones, you're going to have and sort of unlock these different special ability cards. These are called schematics. And you see this has a cost of 2, 8, 3, and 5. And as you go along, you'll just have like 1, and then maybe you'll get to add more as you play along. And these are going to have different special abilities. Well, these are going to start off each game sort of locked up. Now, if we take a look here at this this main board here, there's the minion kills tracker and the doom tracker. So as you get minion kills, and these are the minions, which I haven't really shown you yet, and these guys come with, they're pre-washed, which is ridiculous. And so as you kill the minions, they're going to fill up this track here. Boom, 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 boom. And then once you fill this up here, you're going to move this track here. And as that moves up, once you hit a certain level, so if once we hit level 2, we can unlock that if that was our chosen schematic for the round. And then you'll notice once we get up to level 15, then that's going to then unlock here our overdrive, which again is our special ability there, that each mech has a different special ability. And so this is kind of an interesting way of sort of like leveling up your mech. You get some tech that you get to choose between each scenario, and then you don't have them unlocked until you actually do some work during the game. Now the other thing to note here is this doom tracker. And this is sort of a generic thing. So this might be the hit points of a boss you're trying to take out. It might be like a timer, like a round countdown. It could be the damage that is being done to your base. In this case, it's a school. So in the one scenario, your school will start off with 1 or 3 hit points, depending on if you're playing easy mode or not. And so this is a way to track that. And then you have these generic rune tokens, which don't come into play for a couple of scenarios, but these will track kind of different things in the game. I'll just say that without trying to spoil what's in the main box. So that's what this board is for. And it's going to track all those different things. Now the way the course of a round is going to work is you're going to draft all of these different action cards, and you can see there's 4 different types. So we have sort of the electricity type, kind of a computer chip type, this little nut or gear thing, and then fire. And so you're going to lay these out in front of all the players. Now typically you're going to have 5, but it is possible to have more than 5 based on some different abilities that players will have. Now at the start of the game you're going to have 10 of these, and you're just going to take turns going around drafting. So each player is going to take 2 in that particular case. But normally players will each get 1 unless you're playing with less than 4 players. Let's say you're playing a 2-player game and we're in the 2nd or 3rd round, and then you would get 1, I would get 1, you would get 1, and I would get 1. In that case you would get 2. And that sort of acts as a way to balance the game, for multiple different player counts. So what you're going to do with these cards is you're going to take them and draft them. Now this draft is not at the start, but as you play through, you're going to unlock the sand timer. This is a 40-second sand timer, and you have this long to pick the card. You don't have to figure out what you're going to do with it, but you pick the card, and if you don't have the card pick and there's some left over, you're just going to randomly shuffle them up and then give them to you. Now, the main thing you're going to be doing is playing the cards here on this player board. The other thing that you can do with them is actually use them for their scrap ability. Now, some of the cards have, say, swap 2 undamaged slots, so you can swap cards that are on here on your board. And then another one will be actually to repair 1 damage. So you can actually, instead of slotting the card, discard it and use it for that. I'll talk about damage in a minute. But typically, let's say you have your 2 cards at the beginning, you put 1 card here and 1 card here. So then after everybody's done that, then you just go through and activate your mech, and then you do what it says. So in this case it says move forward 1 space. So your mech would just move forward 1 space. And the next thing would be you must turn 90 degrees, and then you can do damage. That's what that little burst means. Damage all diagonal targets in range 1. So you can see the range there. So then he could do damage maybe to this if we were trying to blow up this little platform or something. Or better yet, if there was a minion there, then we would be able to do damage to it. But the interesting thing is let's say I get another cyclotron, and I can put that down here. And then this will now beef it up. You can see now that we have 2, so you look for 2 symbols here. So I've got 2, I can turn 90 degrees or 180 degrees, and then I can do damage to all diagonal targets at range 2. So it increases the range of your cyclotron. But let's say I wanted to replace it with another card. So here I can put this here, and now I've got 3 cards, and I've replaced it with speed. So I'm no longer using the effects of this, but I'm still beefing this up because I've got 3. And so I can move forward 3 to 6 spaces, or if this was by itself, it would just only be 1 to 2 spaces. Now the thing to note is you have to do what the card says. So you might actually run past where you want to be if you didn't really think out, where this is. Or you might turn in a direction you didn't want to go, and now you're moving this way. And so you've got to kind of plan that a little bit. So again, you're going to do damage to minions, and if you step on a minion, it also will kill it because you just stomp on it. Now after the players have gone, you're going to then move and spawn minions, and the minions are going to spawn different ways based on the scenario. But one thing you might do is you might roll this rune die, and you can see here is a compass, and the scenario will tell you which way to set this up, and this will actually drive a lot of different things kind of based on the scenario. It might actually point to a certain board or tell you from which direction the minions will move. So if you rolled the blue here, they're all going to move up. If you rolled red, they'll all move right. so on. And it might also dictate where they spawn. So if they're spawning kind of randomly, they'll spawn on these different colored runes. And so these are all very interchangeable. So like the Doom Tracker, the runes here, it's not always going to mean the same thing every game, which is pretty cool. Now the other thing that might happen is you might have, let's say minions were here, and you know, this guy moved here, and this guy moved here, and pretend another one spawned here because we spawned on blue or something. So now, after the minions have moved and spawned, then you're going to see if anybody's adjacent to you. And adjacent in this game is always orthogonal. It's never diagonal. And so then for each minion that's adjacent to you, you're going to draw a damage card. And a damage card will do all kinds of nutty things. So you draw a damage card, and then this one, for example, will be a slotted damage card. So the first thing you're going to do is move one space to the right, which is awesome because that kills that minion. And then you're going to have to slot it. If it has that symbol, you're going to roll one of these D6s, and see that says 4. So you're going to have to put it now in your 4 slot, which was where you had your really cool little built-up capabilities. So now, instead of doing this awesome thing, you're going to move to the right. Now again, you can repair that. Remember I said you can discard some of these cards during the draft phase to repair damage, and that simply will remove that, and then you can go back to it. And if you get a new damage on the slot, it just replaces this one, the old one goes away. Now some of these are not slottable, like this one is reorder your command line, swap slots 3 and 4, then you discard it. That's how damage works. Now you never actually will be removed from the game, but it's possible that you would have, you know, 6 cards that are just all damage. And it is actually possible to get a damage and be like, I kind of like that there. That's actually going to help me, and leave it there, which is kind of funny. And this actually is one that randomly that we actually used to great effect, which was stuck controls, and the person just moved all the way to the right, and they had a combo with the other cards, and they just walked over a whole bunch of minions, which was really hilarious. Let's see here. So the other thing you can do is towing, and I'll talk more about this in the review, but the towing rules as written are sort of non-intuitive. So the basic idea though is this. So let's get this out here. So let's say I had this was here, and I was moving this way, and I wanted to tow this bomb because you needed to move this bomb into some place to make it explode, or you can even tow other people's mechs and so on. So to do that, I need to have sort of 2 movement for 1 movement. Now this is written way better, and as I have like an unofficial FAQ that will be released around the time that the game is released, but I hope I explain it right. So if I have a movement that does 1, okay, fine, 1. If I have another movement that does 1, that's good, but I don't get to tow this with me. I need a movement of 2. So if in case I had a movement of 3, I could go 1, 2, 3, and then move that with it. And if I had another movement of 1, I would detach that. So I would actually lose that. So now I want movement of 2 at least for all these. So I'd have to go 1, 2, and so on. So it's a little bit funky how the rules are written for that, but if you read the FAQ, it kind of makes more sense. But again, you can tow these, the bombs, and also the minions as well. That's probably the most odd thing about the rules, other than some of the timings during the minion phase. What minions do you move when, and when does damage happen? I can just tell you right now, you draw all the damage cards for all the minions surrounded you at the beginning, because if you step over or maybe move away from the minion, you're still going to apply the damage that you had at the beginning. So I think that is sort of the basics of the rules. Like I said, Rodney's got the kind of complete walkthrough, and he's walking through all of the scenarios too. I think he's doing every last one of them. So if you don't mind spoilers, and you maybe had a question about how something certainly works within a given scenario, you can definitely watch those videos. Okay, so that is Mechs versus Minions. So I want to say a couple things. First off, the game is amazing, bonkers, out of this world amazing. But let me go through a couple caveats that I can jump into gushing like a child about it. Okay, the first thing I mentioned there at the end of the walkthrough is the need for an FAQ. Now, it definitely does need one. So to me, to my mind, and this is a little bit Monday morning quarterbacking, is I think they play tested the heck out of this game, but I don't think they play tested enough out of the rule book, because there was a lot of questions, even in that first, not the tutorial, but like the first scenario, that were just driving us crazy. And we got to the point where we couldn't figure out if we were going to win or lose the game based on an interpretation of a rule, which was, it was a little like disheartening, because up until that point, we were having a great time. We were loving it. And then we couldn't figure out, okay, well, if we interpret the way minions activate this way, then we win. If we interpret it this way, well, guess what? We actually lose because of where we were at in the game. So that was a little disheartening. Like I mentioned, the towing thing is kind of wonky. Now, I don't want to oversell that, because A lot of that you can kind of just intuit and with a little bit of common sense, but it's one thing to do that and it's one thing to know for certain that you're playing correctly in your heart. But the nice thing is, I know they're working on an FAQ and they're going to release it, you know, right as the game releases at some point once they get it all ironed out. So that's going to happen. So once that happens, you're going to download that, and I've been reading kind of this unofficial one. And that cleared up all the questions that I had, frankly. So as long as you get that and you know that going in, I think you're gonna have an awesome time. Now the other sort of caveat is, I think this wants the 3 or 4 player count. Now I've tried it at the different counts, and the 2 player, it just seems like it's a little bit harder. Now, you do kind of have some scaling with the ability to draft multiple cards, but kind of depending on the scenario, you maybe won't have people covering the different areas. So like the diversity of coverage in the area and the diversity of actions that's possible with just having the more mechs, it's not quite there with 2 players. Now, I don't think that this part is actually necessarily a bad thing. It's a little bit more challenging, I think, and it's going to be a little bit more, you know, there's going to be a little bit more randomness, I think, because you're not going to be able to sort of dilute what people are doing. When you're playing with 4 players, you can kind of have people sort of tech up and become experts in certain kinds of things within a given mission. So for example, one mission that we did, I got to the point where I actually used one of the damage cards to help me, where I was just actually like able to sit and rock back and forth in one spot and do like this area effect damage as these minions were flooding the school, and I was blowing them up. So I was kind of acting as defense, and then other players were going out and fetching like these little crystal things to bring back. And so because of that, I was able to do that. So with 2 players, you'd be really hard pressed to win that one, especially if somebody got stuck like that and they wouldn't be able to kind of make use of that. So just be aware that the 2 to 4 player game, I think it's going to play out a little bit differently. I don't know that it's like bad with 2 players. It's just like, you know, some of the scenarios wouldn't be as winnable, or you'd have to get a little bit more lucky or something. The other thing is the last caveat thing, which to me is not a caveat, is the programming aspect. So the game of like programming for chaos is interesting. Now I think this is where the game destroys all the other programming games. I think even if you didn't like this kind of game, you might still like this one, because you have so much kind of possibility to mitigate the randomness a little bit, especially at the larger player count. You can, like I said, you can really specialize, and you can really like double down and like count on certain actions being there again and again. You're like, okay, no, I'm going to do some movement here, and then I'm really going to stack my damage up over at the end, or do vice versa. So in the way that you card draft and stuff really adds that. It's like, man, I really need a heal this time, so you get the heal, and then okay, we'll give you that, and you know, you get this little thing here that you can go do that. So because you're kind of collectively doing that, it really works. And I think the timer here is excellent, because what we would do is, well, in our last couple of games anyway, we would say, okay, what does everybody kind of need? You need a little heal, this and that. Okay, we need that. So everybody's good with what they need. Quick discussion, 10-15 seconds. Then you flip the timer, you flop the cards, boom, boom, boom. Then there's maybe some decision, because you know the flop didn't go out as quite as much as we like. And maybe we got a whole bunch of these skewers or something that we don't really need, but you know, maybe somebody can make use of. So you have that 40 seconds to sit there, and it just removes all that analysis paralysis. Now you can still figure out where you want to slot it after you take the cards, and figure out maybe if you want to scrap it or something. But that 40 seconds is very nice, because you don't have anybody really like telling anybody what to do, but you still have the communication there, which is the fun part. You're all in it together, and that's something the game really excels at. Now we're moving into the amazingness of it. The teamwork level works really well. Everybody has a specialized role. Your role develops over the course of a game, which is fantastic. So that's where the game just really shines. And again, talking sort of dovetailing from sort of the chaotic programming side of it, that's where like the hilarity of the game is really going to come through. Like I said, that one mission where I'm like rocking back and forth, blowing stuff up, and it's just, you know, you can look at that so many ways, like thematically and in terms of the narrative of like, you know, it's like silly guy. It's like Jar Jar Binks, you know, he's like falling all over the place at the end of episode 1 of Star Wars, and he's randomly blowing everybody up. Or, you know, I'm such a good engineer that I've taken this exploded control panel to my advantage and used it and, you know, tricked it out so that I'm doing this circle and blowing everything up. And just lots of like little moments like that are going to happen where you're going to like, wipe everything out, and everybody's like, well, we blew up everything and all the minions are gone, and we rescued the crystal or whatever the thing is, or killed the boss. And then the next thing is going to happen, and it's just like, what? We're going to totally lose this game because all of that chaos that we've corralled is now thrown back against us. And so it's a great experience from that perspective of, you kind of built the game, kind of starts off a little bit slow. Everybody gets those first 2 cards in that draft, and you kind of do a couple things, and then this thing kind of picks up, and it's like a roller coaster, just building up. So that's the excellent part of the game. So for my money, and we can talk about the cost now. And I know a lot of people have discussed this, and people are probably sick a little bit of discussing it. It's a $75 game. In the US, it's $5 shipping. So this is, equivalent of like one of those big Bonanza Kickstarters or a collector's edition kind of game that you would get. And you're certainly getting your money's worth. And I think more than just like you're getting your money's worth, you're getting 100 minions that are all the same. Well, there's different poses, but they're effectively the same. So to me, I don't know that I get the $75 out of just the minions, but the hero mechs are ridiculously painted. I mean, for a pre-painted game, really, really good. All of the other components are awesome. You got the other side of these boards here. These boards are great, right? And then the back side here, this is volcano, lava types of things. Very nicely illustrated. Everything's very, very clear. The cards are great. I mean, they're very easy to, to read, and the art's awesome. I think this is an interesting moment in board gaming. I mean, these guys could make this game and they could go away and they could never make another game. And I think this really should leave a mark, though, in terms of what's possible to get. Now, the thing is with these guys is it's interesting. So I'm going to step away from the review a minute, because this is like completely another industry in a sense, coming in and making a board game. So it would be like, let's say like Disney made a board game or something. I mean, because League of Legends makes like $1 billion a year or something. But it's like another industry coming in. But these guys really, I think, cared about what they were doing. That's the sense I have from folks I know that have spoken with them, and just from really looking at the production and looking at what they've done. Now, again, there's an FAQ needed for the rulebook. The rulebook is not perfect, but it's also like their first game they ever made. So I think a funky rulebook is okay, especially if an FAQ clears everything up. Big deal. Print out the FAQ and then you're ready to have fun. But other than that, very, very minor critique. You have here a complete game from start to finish. Now, I've only played the first 5 scenarios, so I haven't played to 6 through 10. I don't know if those are any fun or not. I assume they will be, because all the ones that we've done have been really fun and very, very different. Each of them kind of comes at you sort of like a different problem to solve. So it's like, okay, in this one we're kind of just trying to race across to the other end without letting all the minions cross to our side of the board. Or this one we're trying to kill a boss, or before he fires off his Omega weapon. Or this one we're trying to bomb this special spot or protect a school. Well, the school can't take any damage. So it's the same framework, but within the bounds of all of these different, scenarios. So you're going to be able to replay it. And like the boss one we played, man, I could play that 5 or 6 times because it was just really, really fun. And the way that the boss triggers, I don't want to spoil it because, people have already jumped on me for showing the figure, but the way the boss plays out is very, very cool and different. So there's that. So the other thing that I know is in the game, and that I've heard, is that there is a way, like once you get through the 10 scenarios, then it sort of unlocks like a achievement difficulty kind of thing or something. There's something that happens. That's all I know. And it allows you to kind of replay through the scenarios kind of in a different way, I guess. So even if you were to go 10-0 and then unlock whatever that is and then play them again, that would be 20 games. And then you'd have played everything. But there's nothing stopping you from playing the same scenario over and over again. Now, I played this, let's see, I'm having a brain fart. I've lost two or 3 games. because I got confused again about that one that we had a rules issue on. 2 or 3 games and played the 5 scenarios, so what, a 5 and 3, I guess you would call it. So you're not going to win every single game, so you want to play it again after you've lost it. So you're going to get a ton of plays. So even if the components of this game weren't like out of this world, this is still like a locked in, I think, guaranteed 20 to 30 plays at least before you've seen the entire game. So in that sense, it retains a lot of that legacy aspect, again, without having to rip anything up, which is neat. So I think it's great. I think, you know, I'm releasing this video here probably a week before it goes on sale. I highly recommend the game. I think you can't go wrong with it. Get the FAQ when it comes out. And I think there's a lot of room here actually to customize the game. And one thing I've been thinking about is doing like a PvP, because it's all co-op. But I don't see why you couldn't just do a PvP scenario, like have 2 guys on one board, and then you do the same kind of thing, you draft, but instead now you can actually damage the other mechs, because normally if you do damage it doesn't hurt the mech or anything. But now you do damage to it, and then maybe the first person to, I don't know how you track hit points though, I mean maybe the first person to get 4 of the 6 slots with damage markers loses or something. But that could be really fun too, because the core is like so simplistic in a way, so like elegant of just draft cards, activate them, that you can kind of throw anything at it. So I'm pretty interested to see if they ever expand it or come up with some kind of player versus player scenario or something like that. All right, so that's Mechs versus Minions. Definitely the real deal, guys. Pick it up if you can on the day it comes out. I think you won't regret it. Okay, thanks.